Does doing the right thing come at the cost of business performance? Can ethics and profit coexist? Welcome to the Human Conversation podcast. Join host Kaumudi Goda for candid conversations with industry luminaries as we navigate the maze of decision-making in today's global workplace. Each episode offers a window into the minds of leaders achieving remarkable outcomes while balancing diverse priorities and stakeholders. Tune in for thought-provoking insights and actionable strategies on leading with ethics every day. Because in the pursuit of excellence, integrity matters.
Welcome to another episode of the Human Conversation on Leadership and Ethics. I'm your host, Kaumudi Goda, and today we're in conversation with Kristen Anderson. Kristen is currently the CEO of the European Women on Boards, or EWOB, a member of the EWOB Board since 2021, and leads the EWOB Executive Committee. EWOB is the European Umbrella Association for Gender Equality at Decision-Making Level, a non-profit organization whose aim is to increase gender diversity in C-suite and board roles throughout Europe and beyond. From 2016 to 2021, Kristen was the Chief Diversity and Inclusion Officer for Barilla and had been a member of its D&I Board since its formation in 2013. Kristen reported to the CEO of Barilla and led a 12-member D&I Board comprised of internal members from 8 regions and external advisors. After a master's degree in chemical engineering, Kristen worked in the food industry for over 25 years, leading various R&D teams in diverse geographies such as Australia, Germany, China, India, South Africa, Singapore, Italy, and originally the USA. I've had the opportunity to observe Kristen over the years in a professional capacity, and it's been a special delight working closely with her at EWOB. I find Kristen embodies D&I values in all her interactions. I'm excited to welcome her to our conversation today. Hi, Kristen. Welcome. I'm so excited to have you for our conversation today.
Kaumudi, so thank you so much. It's great that you've invited me to join you today. And also, it's been a pleasure working with you in European Women on Boards as a co-leader of our DEI working group.
It's been one of my highlights working with you. I've known you and been following you for a while, of course, because of the work you do. You've had a stellar career so far, and you continue to do so many different things. You mentor, you speak all over the world. Is there a red thread that ties all of it together for you? What's the driving force behind all that you do?
I think for me, I think I really focus on seeing what other people try to experience, what other people are experiencing from my time of working around the world. As you know, I'm American. I grew up in a small town called Los Alamos. For those who have seen Oppenheimer, that's where I grew up, in that town, where there was inclusion if you were really good at science. And I'm a chemical engineer by training in university, but you can always find areas of exclusion. And for me, when you've experienced not being included, you know how it feels. You know what it does to your ability to succeed in your career. So I've seen this throughout my career in different cultures when I lived, around the world, in Australia and Germany and China and Singapore, that there's always a group that's excluded from the majority. And from one perspective, you miss a lot of opinions that help business results. You make mistakes, and then you can just see the morale of people, the confidence of people going down when they're not listened to. And I can really had personal experience with that, but then I can empathize with others. So what really drives me is saying this should not be the way it is. We should not just say it's okay, some groups will be the majority and the minority just has to stay quiet and go along. I mean, what's the point of having diverse opinions if we're not listening to them? So this really makes me passionate about working on inclusion. And so in my roles kind of fell to my last corporate role as the Chief Diversity Officer for Barilla, which I loved that role. And that's how I also wanted to stay in this space and work on European Women on Boards, which is about having more gender diversity, as you know, in decision making, but really to have the voice of those that are underrepresented heard by others, because it will only make whatever we're doing stronger and be better at working together.
I can vouch for my personal experiences. I do feel delighted to work with you because I find you walk the talk. The term ethics, um, integrity, these things mean so much to me. From a lawyer's perspective, those are, of course, central to the ideas of compliance and following the rules and regulations. But I also see you as a person who's very ethical about how you approach management of teams, putting together your leadership stance and strategy. What do the terms mean to you?
Well, let me start with integrity. I mean, I think if you talk about everyone should kind of think about what your personal values are. And for me, fairness, integrity is very high. It's just one of the top. And whenever I've done those assessments, it comes out top. For me, integrity means I have to live true to my values. And if feel I'm in a situation that I can't, I can't just stay there. I need to figure out some way that either I can change it so that I can be true to my values, or in some cases I leave organizations because I don't feel that their organizations, the values are aligned with mine. So integrity means, walking the talk. And we say that so much. Everyone says, walk the talk, but there is a lot of whatever washing you want to call it, and so you really, for me, I find it would be completely demotivating and just doing a job for money if I didn't do something where I felt it was aligned with my values, that I was doing it in a way that was transparent and fair when I can, whenever I can't share everything, and make sure that people are being treated not equally, because that we know it's, how you want to be treated is different than how I want to be treated, but treating them, in the way that in which they want to be treated, and making sure that we're fair in the way we're treating, we don't have bias in the way we're, evaluating people, et cetera. So there's lots of best practices out there people can take in that space. And ethics, I think ethics, part of your own upbringing and part of company ethics. And I think ethics are much easier sometimes to define. They have an ethics code of conduct, et cetera, which means, that there's a lot of things with compliance there. But for me, I feel I need to be behaving in an ethical way, but very much with integrity that's aligned with my personal values.
Integrity and fairness being your central values. I have seen that. One of the tricky parts about that, Kristen, is when they see somebody who has achieved career success like you, and you talk about fairness and ethics or integrity, it can feel like, oh, that's an abstract value. That's aspirational. I can't afford to do this because I'm a mere cog in the wheel. I don't have enough power. Would you be able to share any story where you personally had a tough time navigating a difficult ethical dilemma in a professional role? And how did that shape your approach going forward?
No, it's a good question. And I'm sure everyone that's listening, Kaumudi, has had some kind of dilemma that keeps them up at night. They can't sleep because they feel that something they want to get involved or they don't know how they can. I mean, I'll share an example. I think we've all known in companies that there are, some people who are really good performers who deliver great business results, but everyone knows that they are horrible managers. They treat their employees not well, not inclusive, even worse, harassing or bullying. A lot of times you see bullying. And I've experienced this in my career, but I've also seen it in high-level managers. And so, and HR knows it many times, but also, again, caught between, the business results and what do I do about this? When I was chief diversity officer, I needed to, get involved in these areas. And I said, for me, it would keep me up at night if I don't do anything, because again, you empathize with the employees underneath this manager. So ultimately but I could not go in and disclose information that someone told me confidentially as chief diversity officer. I could not go and, disclose this because this is something that was, was between the two of us. So I had to figure out another way to get these type of, to move forward with some action that would try to change this behavior. I, would go back to people and say, can I use your comments anonymously? Get who else would have similar experience so that I could try to talk with them privately and confidentially. Then go to HR with, not people's names, but there's, 5 people in this group who are not being treated fairly. We need to do something about this. One step ahead was really a big benefit is to having a compliance hotline where employees could either call in or write in anonymously when there was any kind of behavior at a company that wasn't inclusive and wasn't in line with the ethics. So, and it wasn't just about bullying behavior. It was also about conflict of interest in other areas. And then a compliance team, including external advisors, would evaluate each of these and investigate each of them. So it wasn't run by HR. It was run by compliance, and HR was a member, and D&I was a member if there was certain topics. And, ultimately, this story ended up well. It took a long time, but ended up very well because one very courageous woman put in a comment in the tip line anonymously, and an investigation needed to happen. And, basically they interviewed 10 people in this person's group, and the comments were all consolidated, and ultimately a report was generated, and this person had to discuss with this person, and basically said, if any of this behavior continues, you will be terminated. But again, it took courage. It took a way to, not disclose confidential information, but at the same time, try to figure out a way to get enough comments that it could go forward. Because again, doing nothing to me is just, it's not only you're feeling for the people who can't necessarily have a voice, who are afraid to lose their jobs. Someone has to speak up for them. And I think figure out a way to do this within the confines of your company or, the organization.
That's so powerful. I know that it's something that a lot of people worry about, is how to navigate that tightrope balance between constraints and responsibilities of the senior role, wanting to thrive and succeed, because we all do, with doing the right thing and speaking up. And this seems like an excellent one. Patience, do the right thing, put together ways in which things can be improved, and then just stay at it.
And get others involved, in a way that's still, still keeping the confidentiality. But I think there is always something you can do, even speaking to someone and trying to support them. I think it's, again, it's about making the voices of the underrepresented or those who are being bullied, et cetera, heard, because you maybe have more power and you have more privilege than others. Yeah.
I love it. One of the things I noticed about the way you lead teams is also, in general, you are calm and always have an open ear to all different perspectives. Even if a particular voice, for example, has an opinion that maybe others aren't agreeing with, you always strike a tone of, all voices are welcome. This is an interesting opinion, and let's hear it. That's the question I have for you, because I know this has been your professional journey. You've done many different roles in different industries and sectors in different regions and countries. You're also a DEI and multiculturalism expert. Do you have any advice for those who are really new at any place, right? Whether it's region, sector, role, and any advice for them on how to integrate and thrive?
Mm-hmm. No, I made my share of mistakes, as we all do when you go to a different culture. As I said, when you go to China, I made mistakes, and all the cultures, Australia, Germany, Singapore, and I remember them. And what was really helpful for me is having someone to ask for feedback. It doesn't mean your boss, because your boss is not going to see you in all the contexts. That's one way of getting feedback. But I remember a specific example in China. So I moved to China, was leading a team of all Chinese leaders as the head of R&D for Coca-Cola. And after a few months, I asked HR manager, Jennifer, and she came to me and she said, I have some advice to give you. I said, please tell me. And she said, Kristen, in our team meetings, it's better if you speak less often and speak last. Now, I should have done more homework on cultural understanding, but I learned from her and from others that, honestly, it's the senior manager speaks first, which happens not only in China, in other cultures. Other people won't disagree in a public setting, and maybe not disagree ever. So the fact that I was just being, using I would call it more American style, and whenever I had something to say, I was saying it, people wouldn't disagree. And so I was frustrated because what I thought we agreed to do with the nodding heads was not a real nodding head. It was, I heard you, but I didn't necessarily agree with you. And I was shutting off the conversation by having the most senior person speak first. So, and also, not being aware that some people take longer to speak up. So I started speaking less and speaking last and letting everyone have a conversation. So I think it's, learning these cultural elements, learning the language if possible, or even being open to learn some of the language, because you then are saying, I'm approachable. I'm interested in your culture. I want to know your cultural differences. You can do that very well by the language, or trying the foods is really important. But get feedback at all levels and be very open to listening to that, because there's listening and there's active listening. And so sometimes I make the analogy, Kaumudi, it's just, I think of myself lying on a beach and letting the waves just watch over me. So what people are saying is something that I'm feeling, I'm listening to. I don't have to get defensive about it, and no one's telling you have to take every piece of feedback and do something with it. Some people will you trust more, but then let it wash over you like you're a sponge, and just take it and decide how that makes you a better manager and a better leader. Why not? It's not taking something away from you. Think of it as adding something to you, and you can choose what of that feedback is beneficial. You can choose which of that feedback to take. Someone gave me advice one time saying, Kristen, you will learn something from all the managers that you've ever had. You'll learn something from the good managers, and you will also learn something from the worst managers, because you'll learn how you never want to manage. So again, take it all in like a sponge and decide what then makes your own personal style and your own integrity and what you want to do in your job.
That's such a beautiful metaphor, almost meditative. And I see that energy you bring to meetings as well, because it's an excellent way, I think, to calm people down. If a normally quiet person speaks up and is very stringent in their opinion, it's because they want to be heard. Something has triggered them. And by using that metaphor, letting those be waves washing over you, you give them space to say what they mean, and they also calm down, because they then receive the energy you're giving them, which is just calm, listening, allowing that to just happen. And that's beautiful.
No, you're right, Kim. I remember early in my career, I had strong opinions. I still have strong opinions, but I mean, you need to listen to others. But I would spend that time listening to someone else while my mind was figuring out, what am I going to say to argue against what that person's saying? Until you're not really listening. You're not really listening. So I think that this is the point, is doesn't take anything away from you, just to say, I'm just letting it wash over me. Even if people are upset and happy, I'm letting them vent, but then I'm asking questions. So why do you feel like this? What makes you say that? That's a way to get people, you don't have to agree. You don't have to say I agree, but you can ask, questioning type of, responses that lets people feel that you're open to them sharing. And I think that really does drive inclusion.
It's beautiful. Thank you. Is there a quote or book that's currently inspiring you? Anything you want to recommend to our listeners?
Well, I first say a book. I really like the book. It's Inclusion Allies. And now I'm escaping me the name, but you'll find if you Google Inclusion Allies. She has a newsletter, it's Better Allies. And she writes about simple tips all of us can do in our everyday life, whether it's in work or outside of work, to be more inclusive. And I read it and I learn something every time. And she has books, Inclusion Allies. So try that. If you're really interested in just being a more inclusive leader, leader person, in your personal life as well. One of the quotes I really love, though, and it kind of gives me, chills every time I hear it. I think you might know the poet Maya Angelou. And she says, people will forget what you said. People will forget what you did, but they will never forget how you made them feel. And I think this is the piece that we need to remember. You can walk the talk, you can say this and that, but, if you make people feel included, that they're listened to, even if you disagree with them, they will remember it.
On that beautiful, beautiful note, thank you so very much, Kristen. I loved our conversation. I know it's going to inspire and give courage to a lot of people who are listening today. Thank you.
No, thanks for inviting me. It's always a topic near and dear to my heart. So thank you. And it was a pleasure, and hope to hear more from you and your audience.
If anyone wants to get in touch with you, follow your work, or reach out to you about maybe speaking at their event, or what's the best place to follow your work and contact you?
They can connect with me on LinkedIn. Also, I think I encourage people to follow European Women on Boards. You can follow. It's just on LinkedIn, and then you'll be able to see we have open events, and might be interested in trying to be an ally for more gender equality and decision making for senior women and male leaders around Europe. But they can connect with me at LinkedIn, and I'd be happy to then, we can follow up with some time to have a virtual meeting.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks again, Kaumudi.
As we wrap up today's discussion on the human conversation on leadership and ethics, it's clear that integrity and ethics are the cornerstone of leadership. Host Kaumudi Goda thanks you for joining us in this vital dialogue. Before you go, hit that subscribe button and become a part of the community dedicated to ethical leadership. Share your thoughts and continue the conversation with #TheHumanConversationPodcast.